This is Geek Gab with your hosts, John and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back, Geek Gab, for Saturday, January 13th, 2018. Welcome to the brave new year. I noticed last week when we did the show, we skipped announcing what year it was. It was New Year's, and we completely missed it because we got sidetracked. I think it's a record time for us getting sidetracked. We got sidetracked before we even got out of the announcement of what show we were doing. That's impressive. That's how we start off the new year, breaking records right out the gate.
This is a brave new world. It's a great year. We're going to break whatever records there are left to break. Geek Gab 2018 is going to be like no other Geek Gab before.
By the way, folks, you can't see this necessarily unless you're watching this live, but we do actually have a guest. For the show today, we have noted science fiction author, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction, the man who has been banned from Worldcon, his third appearance on the Gab, and the last time he came on was because he got involved in some other problem. So Jon Del Arroz is on the show. And all I want to know is, before I stop talking because of my intense bronchial infection, all I want to know is, John, why are you so hard to get along with?
I don't know. I mean, most of my negative interactions with the people who are just extremely mad about me are just like, hi, would you like, I mean, if you look at, I don't even know where to start. It's so weird. This is just so bizarre how unsociable and angry and crazy people act towards me. File 770, I think, captured it the best. The File 770 is a science fiction news website that just basically posts gossip and hate against anybody of a certain political persuasion. But what they posted was in evidence of my quote harassment of people, because they call anybody they disagree with a serial harasser, was that I do terrible things such as ask people out to lunch, which Doranal here can confirm. I think I took you to breakfast. Is that correct?
Yeah. We did the bacon at IHOP. It was pretty good.
Yeah. So I harassed him similarly.
I was shaking.
I could tell. I tagged people on Twitter, which I believe I tagged both of you guys today. So I guess I'm guilty of that. I asked people to be on YouTube programs, which I didn't do in this instance. You guys asked me, to be fair, but it's kind of the same thing.
How do people react to such horrible harassment?
Well, by banning me from conventions, apparently.
Okay, because we were talking about this. You actually asked last year, hey, if I go to Worldcon in San Jose, is anybody else going to come? And I thought I was going to head down there, but what happened with Worldcon?
Yeah, I started planning it with you and Jeffro Johnson and a couple other people, and we were going to get a table. We were going to set up, sell some books, probably do some live broadcasting because this is what we do. And what happened was the Charlottesville thing started getting crazy. Berkeley was on fire and people were rioting at Berkeley. And, Jeffro and you were kind of like, well, it's kind of dangerous to have any sort of viewpoint that's not extreme SJW wise and go to these things. We're gonna check out of this and I'm sorry, John, we'd like to come, but this might be a little too dangerous to show up. And so I actually emailed Worldcon saying, hey, we were planning on buying a table and, people are bowing out because there's actual, probably real danger to them. And I've actually had some big threats myself because people have sent weird packages to my house. People have doxed my children online. And so, we don't think that, anybody who's, moderate or conservative at this point will be able to be protected at Worldcon. The email I sent it on November 2nd and never got a response from them on that.
No response at all.
No response at all. They completely ignored real tangible threats to safety over political affiliations.
Well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, even the biggest, most expensive cons are run on a, shoestring budget with, no staff really to speak of, mostly volunteers and stuff. So what happened later?
Well, I got a message, I think it was January 3rd, that said I will not be allowed to attend Worldcon, that I'm intending on engendering a hostile environment. That's quite a mouthful right there. Not that I'm actually engendering. I'm not actually engendering a hostile environment, but I'm intending on it. So they didn't respond to my actual safety concerns, yet they acted like I was a safety concern 2 months later. Because of a couple posts I made, which actually were, hey, I have safety concerns also. Nobody bothered to reach out to me. Nobody bothered to talk to me. They just put down this unprecedented ban of me, something they haven't done to anybody since 1964. And the person who was banned then was a convicted pedophile. So it's absolutely mind-boggling.
For what? You were thinking of, I don't know if you were serious or not, but you said something about wearing a body cam just for your own protection.
Yeah, if anybody here is familiar with what happened with diversity in comics at New York Comic Con in 2017, a bunch of comics pros went into a secret Facebook group and started plotting how they're going to goad him into violence, how they're going to harass him, and how they're going to try to get him kicked out of conventions for good. This, in conjunction with my own safety problems, I thought, well, I'm just gonna have a camera on full time. And I thought about it because Dave Truesdale, who runs Tangent Online, he reviews short fiction, got kicked out of Worldcon 2 years ago because they claimed he was interrupting the con, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, actually supposed to be speaking at Worldcon. He gave a little speech about how PC content is ruining science fiction, and a lot of people got upset with him for doing that. Very brave of him, but it wasn't interrupting anything. It was totally part of the programming. He had his right to speak, and they kicked him out and claimed that he was being a big disruptor and all this stuff. Well, he had a recording of it, and he put it out there and showed that he was just doing what he was supposed to be doing. Yeah, some people didn't like it, what he was saying, but it was truthful, and he wasn't a disruptor at all. So I thought, if diversity in comics is having these problems, if Truesdale vindicated himself by this, if somebody tries to assault me or something like that, or try to, harass me or something like that, if I had an ability to just like hit a button and start filming it so that I could vindicate myself, that'd be pretty good. And so it was totally 100% because of my safety concerns to me and because of threats to me. Worldcon is, unfortunately, I mean, we know what's going on here. They have no concern about this in reality. They're banning me because of my political associations and people in the field.
Yeah, it seems like they just don't want to be embarrassed by a guy who is unashamedly. I mean, you often use as your profile picture. You've got the red "Make America Great" hat, and you're flashing the OK sign.
It's not a "Make America Great" hat, actually, and I'm going to plug this real quick. It's actually a "Make Science Fiction Fun Again" hat. It's designed in the same way, and it's they're available on cryptofashion.com in the Jon Del Arroz collection. So we have official "Make Science Fiction Fun Again" hats.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, I think this is the best part about it. It shows how people who are organizing the convention, they're obviously taking sides in this odd fight or war, for lack of a better word, this weird cultural war. Because think about it, you are, I mean, you're fun, you're polite, you're not harassing anybody, but you're tweaking the noses of the people who are of the opposite political persuasion. You're standing up for yourself, and you're saying, well, I'm going to make science fiction fun again. And yeah, maybe you're going to trigger people who think that science fiction is fine the way it is. I mean,
and it's not just diversity in comics, and it's not just John. I mean, Unsleeved Media, the guy who runs Unsleeved Media, which is a Magic the Gathering centric YouTube channel, He got his tournament number, his countrywide tournament number, revoked by Magic the Gathering, by Wizards of the Coast, so he can no longer play any tournaments. And they shut off his Magic the Gathering online account, meaning hundreds of dollars worth of merchandise that he had purchased to be able to play Magic the Gathering online. They just, in effect, confiscated without paying him for it. They took all of it away. They stole it. And the only reason that anybody can point to justify that is because one person said 6 months after the fact that he harassed her when there's no evidence of that whatsoever. So they are, and then of course the usual hate mob descended because of that. And basically, they tried to destroy his livelihood. They tried to destroy his life. They tried to contact his boss. They got him kicked out of Magic. And Wizards of the Coast, the company, joined in on the side of the hate mob. They joined in on the side of the people who were trying to destroy him. And so he had to, that is not just one or two individuals. It's becoming a pattern. And I guess that was the other thing we were going to talk about today, but maybe we should get to that later.
Yeah, I think it is becoming a pattern, and they're getting more brazen with each step of the way. I was in contact with Jeremy from Unsleeved Media. I wrote an article for it for dangerous.com. And I think part of the reason they're so threatened by me in particular is my platforms are really big. I mean, when I write an article for the Federalist about science fiction books or YA books or Marvel comics or whatnot, it's reaching a couple 100,000 people. That's far more than any Marvel comic itself reaches. That's much farther than Worldcon will ever reach. So I'm having a much more tangible impact than these people ever could have, and I think it bothers them that their power structures are threatened by that.
Do we want to mention the other thing that we were going to talk about today? Because it goes in perfectly with it.
Are we talking about Kevin Sorbo right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people might not be aware of this just yet, but we just found out about 2 hours ago that Kevin Sorbo was not allowed to be a guest at the East Coast Comic Con in New Jersey. This is an event in April. It's a fairly sizable con, an article came out about it, and from some folk in the comic industry, and they said they're not allowing Kevin Sorbo. And I went to the Facebook group of Facebook page of the organizer of the con, and he straight up says this. I mean, it's the most blatant act of this I've ever seen. It says, "I turned down Kevin Sorbo for East Coast Comic Con. He's pals with Sean Hannity. Just can't do it. Anything other than his association with somebody else." Sean Hannity, that the guy is freaking Hercules at their convention, and they're actively attempting to hurt people's careers at this point.
That's insane. And Hannity's just a guy on Fox News. He just talks a lot.
Yeah, it's not. I'm associated with Vox Day. I mean, that scares people. It sucks. It's not right. But, I get that Vox is a little more on the extreme side, at least in his, sort of public persona. Hannity's like middle of the road, just mainstream guy. And they're going so brazen that they're announcing that they're banning an actor because he is friends with this guy. I mean, wow.
Unbelievable. And of course, as Escape Below points out in chat, it's no secret that Kevin Sorbo's a Christian guy as well. I don't know how much that plays into it, but
I think it plays a lot into it. I think the Christian value system actually bothers them more than just being a conservative. If if you're a non-religious conservative or whatnot, kind of middle of the road, I think you'll have less problems. I think at this point, they've in their mind branded Christians as the enemy, and I think it plays a big part into that, just because the moral system is so challenging to them.
Oh, sorry. I'm laughing at Bryce Byerly in chat, who has pointed out correctly that now that you've admitted your association with Vox Day, you'll probably be escorted off Google campus if you ever visit.
Oh, that's true. He's banned from Google. That's pretty amazing.
It's all related too.
It is. Yeah, it's amazing how all this is related, and it's the tech and entertainment sort of mindset are very very similar. Tech really at this point they're not creating devices so much as creating content online. So it is an entertainment industry by itself, and so you're finding, especially since all of these industries, Hollywood, Google, Twitter, operate in California. A lot of the same mindsets and a lot of the same people just kind of repeating themselves and acting. What they'll do is they end up treating each other like their authorities, and so everybody starts to believe their authorities, and their word ends up becoming the moral arbiter of society, which is frightening because of the way these people live their lifestyles.
Well, and if you watched the Project Veritas videos this week, Project Veritas did an undercover expose of Twitter employees, including, apparently they teased today, Jack Dorsey himself, the CEO of the company. But what they showed is that the reason why these companies are so dictatorial is that they exist in a monoculture. They have an employee of Twitter saying, oh yeah, well, we put people on the list to be shadow banned because they use words like God or flag or Constitution, or they have a post a picture of an American flag. I mean, who talks like that? That's an exact quote. I mean, who talks like that? So these people at Twitter exist in a culture where no one they know discusses God, where no one they know discusses patriotism, where no one they know has reverence for the American flag, where no one they know, and I put up a tweet just after seeing that video where I listed like the 7 things that came to mind that would get me shadow banned again, just because it was their list of what a quote unquote redneck would talk about. Gun, the freedom to own firearms, things like that. Any of that stuff will get you shadow banned by Twitter. And the reason why, and I'm trying to circle it around to the topic of the discussion so we don't get sidetracked into discussing politics. The reason why is because they exist in a monoculture and they simply have never met in their entire lives people who believe what well over half the country believe.
Yeah, I think they intentionally set it up that way. If you look at like 2016, we're now been escalating for a couple years. There was a little talk, and there was just kind of Gamergate, and it was kind of separate and small. 2016, these people like got in their minds that anybody who thinks different, because of the constant 24/7 news media and then social media is amplifying of fake news. They got in their minds that everybody who is different than them is a literal Nazi, which is literal Nazi behavior. But we don't need to go into that. That's obvious. But you go on their social media at the time, and even if you're friends for years, they'd be typing in all caps, going, "If you are this or this, you might as well unfriend me now." I use this as a joke myself. At this point, I posted the other day, if you're not reading Richard Fox's The Emperor War, you might as well unfriend me now. But they mean it. They mean it seriously. And
I want to interrupt you there. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We actually had a similar situation happen here on the Gab. If you go back through our episodes that we posted, you'll notice that one of them is private. You can't listen to that show anymore, that episode anymore, because the person who we had on the show that week, and I'm not going to talk about who they are, I'm not going to, mention it, they got upset at something one of the hosts of the show posted off the show, completely on their own personal social media account. They got upset about it and demanded that we remove the show because they didn't want to be associated with Geek Gab anymore. We were being shunned. We were being, we were being cast out ritually because of something completely unconnected with the show, completely unconnected with the episode. So that's why that video is private, is exactly the situation.
Yeah, that's so I mean, when you get in that mindset where you're shutting off anybody with any sort of different views, and completely disassociating with them, I mean, what happens a year later? This is a year later now. You haven't even seen anybody contending against your views. You haven't seen that anybody else has another perspective. You're at a point where you think everybody's such lockstep with you. And, I mean, I think, science fiction writer John Scalzi is a great example of this. I mean, he posted this blog the other day that's just horrendous that says, if you don't openly admit that Trump's a racist, I'm going to judge you. And it's like, who are you? Just some dude who's, writing science fiction books, like to cast out moral judgment upon somebody. It's like,
I would like to point out that your assertion that John Scalzi is writing science fiction books is not backed up by proof. We have
wow.
We have proof. We have proof that John Scalzi has written science fiction books, but there is, as of yet right now, no extant proof that he is writing science fiction books. Just putting that out there.
I'm sorry, I retract my prior statement.
I want to play devil's advocate, or maybe cut at least the normies a little bit of slack with regards to this whole anti-conservative, anti-Christian culture, because for folks our age, when we were young and consuming all sorts of terrible media, it was the Christian conservatives who were sort of, for lack of a better word, the problem. They had a lot of clout in the culture, and now that I'm older, I can see that it was fighting back against the other side dominating culture, but they were still the wagging their fingers, trying to introduce bills into Congress about violence in video games. And we all know the laugh fest that is how Dungeons and Dragons is evil. We've talked about it on the show. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily the fanatics who are in power trying to ban Sorbo and Del Arroz and whatnot, but I think there's a lot of normal people who feel like maybe it's a backlash against that culture that they had to deal with when they were growing up, when they had, when they were told that, the bad, moron Christians in flyover country were, trying to stop you from playing whatever games, listening to whatever music you wanted, that sort of thing. For better or worse, it was part of our culture.
When I was a kid, I went to a private Christian school. Wanted, they always had their and all that, and they always, I'm like, wow, this cool. And they would actually black them out and not allow you to order them, and that's satanic stuff. This is in the early 90s. So, and that was kind of the end of that. I think the sort of like grunge movement, like, indie hipster movement of the 90s, an end of that, which permeated through the 80s, perhaps. We are seeing an opposite extreme of that now. That in culture, it's been mocked in culture for since the 80s. Like, we're almost 30 years into, mocking and deriding anybody who has any sort of opinion on that level, for more than a generation. So, pretty lockstep with those who control culture. And I think it was kind of an indie movement to fight, got in charge, ended up being worse.
Yeah. I mean, from that perspective, obviously, now that we're standing here and we see what's happened, it was obvious that it was some sort of reaction to forces that had been put into play before we were born. Culturally speaking.
Yeah, and
they were just
very little we can do about that. But in the same vein, the people who were pushing culture through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there was a sort of Christian right movement saying, don't buy this stuff. An alternative making culture saying this is what is only can be produced in the 70s and 80s. I mean, Heinlein stuff is I mean, it's pretty degenerate.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up a lot, John. Are you saying Heinlein?
Is really, it's got a lot of pretty content that's way over the line, you know. So I think this culture's been going on longer. You know, and some of it was just the artists pushing because there was a reaction to it. But these artists have been in control since way longer than we can even imagine.
Everybody knows who's listened to this show for more than a few episodes that Google loves us so much that they arrange for amazing and groundbreaking new technical difficulties to spring up just about every single show. So we appreciate that, Google. By the way, we appreciate you thinking so much of us that you have gifted us with a terrible, horrible system. But right now, John is breaking up a bit. So I'm going to do some live troubleshooting right here on the air in the interests of the audience. Wait, am I breaking up too?
Nope, it's just John.
Okay. I'm guessing that means...
I don't think it's the stream. It's probably just him.
I'm guessing that means that something is saturating the bandwidth at your house. Because typically if someone uses the internet a lot at your house, it interferes with the compression and broadcast of audio and also the receipt of audio.
All right. I'm going downstairs right now and I'm checking to make sure nobody's the we're gonna have some loud children whining for a second.
They may...
Yeah, well, nobody's using the internet, guys. I don't see anything.
Oh, you're coming in loud and clear right now, so I'm afraid you're stuck downstairs.
I'm just gonna stay downstairs then. So we'll see how this is. This is reality Geek Gab.
Well, and just to go back to what we were talking about, where the competing, having a competing, Christian-based alternative to current popular culture, it's definitely something that you guys want, or that we want as a society. But there's a huge demand for it. I just wanted to say that, especially since you're still breaking up, that as someone who is not particularly Christian, the attempts at doing it have been not very competent. It's not just because all the Christian films and things have sort of been low quality or preachy or eye rolling, and what we need stuff like we need authors like you or Brian Niemeyer or even John C. Wright, people who can write good stuff without it doesn't have to be explicitly Christian, or that sort of thing. Something, as long as it's good, right? It's got to be good quality too, because the folks who have dominated the culture and sort of steered it in a direction that a lot of people don't like, where they've created this horrible polarizing environment where you can get disinvited from a convention just for voting the wrong way. They have regularly put out good quality stuff. I mean, evil people have been able to generate great things. I cannot deny that Chinatown is a great movie. It was just made by a terrible person. Welcome back, John. Say something.
Les? Hello?
Hey.
Am I breaking up, Les?
So far.
Cool. All right. Sorry about the technical difficulties there, guys. I think the problem with Christian culture in the 90s and 80s and all that was just that it was lame. I mean, they tried so I don't know what the deal was, but like it's like they prided themselves in being lame. But I think it's starting to change. You know, I'm seeing, you know, like John C. Wright. Really, I want to talk about his Moth and Cobweb a little bit. I mean, that is premier Christian culture right there. It is a beautiful fantasy story, and it's like on the level of C.S. Lewis, you know, in terms of just depth and world building. It's got beautiful imagery of King Arthur, of knights, of it's got elves, it's got the modern world, it's got, you know, the fact that Jesus Christ existed actually matters. It's so beautifully done, and it tells a fun story of just a coming of age boy who's willing to become a knight. So you get like the great story, but you also get this great background where you actually you feel you know, sort of the truth of Christianity permeating in it. And I think that kind of content were thought provoking and really interesting, hold back, like make by message really is a roadmap.
You're hosting today. I'm going to throw this problem to you. That's one of the benefits of not hosting for today.
Yeah, we're still getting mixed quality out of John.
Well, we've been doing this for 33 minutes. We've covered most of what we need to cover. I've got a couple things I want to say, but we can just call it because we're almost to the.
We've been half an hour. We've covered all the bases. Let's give John a few more seconds to see if he can say goodbye or something without breaking up.
Yeah. Am I working now at all? I'm really trying everything. I'm going around the house, unplugging things. I'm walking to different areas.
Honestly, it's probably not something that you can fix by walking around the house or whatever. No, it's probably some fundamental infrastructure thing.
Bummer. Oh well. Well, I'm sorry for my technical difficulties there, guys.
It's been a great chat, and we've sort of figured out what you were saying in between.
Good. So yeah, I'll be just pumping out content. I mean, you guys see I'm pretty prolific, and I'm really dedicated towards just coming out with as much as I can on the science fiction front, on the comic front, and on the journalism front. We're gonna go full steam ahead in 2018, and you know, nobody's gonna be able to silence me. That's the bottom line.
I love to hear that. Thanks so much for joining us, John. I'm gonna say thanks to you and everybody on the stream for listening in, and I'm going to shut up and let Daddy Warpig give us his final thoughts.
The only way to fight a culture war is by making culture. And I know a lot of the people who listen to this show are already writers or artists of one variety or another. So obviously you're out there doing it. You don't have to sit back and just accept the culture that people have handed you. You don't have to sit back and accept the degenerating culture that is being pushed on America. Go out if you have the talent, if you have the interest, if you have the time and the determination of your own, because that's the only way to fight a culture war is by making culture. Voting by itself won't do it. All of the other things that people have been trying for the last 40, 50 years aren't going to do it on their own. Going out, getting involved, making the absolute best book or comic book or movie or song or whatever you can, something so good that a general audience can't help but want to read it. That's how we're going to fight and how we're going to win. We apologize, folks, for the technical difficulties, not being able to have John on as much as we would like. But we do thank you for tuning in. We thank you for all the people who came in and sat in the chat to talk about various stuff, all of it interesting. So if you want to get involved in the chat, you can come in and listen live. We tweet out the YouTube announcements quite a lot, so you can come in and listen. Also, we have an announcement. Last week I said that I was that Nick Cole and Jason Onspach who write Galaxy's Edge, had agreed to come on the show. We now have a firm date for that on the 27th of this month. They will be coming on the show to discuss their Galaxy's Edge marketing plan. And I'm also trying to see if we can get Ben Chia on the show from Singapore, who is the local expert on Steam, which is a platform that a lot of people in the Pulp Revolution have been using to start theoretically making money. So we're going to see if we can get him on the show. Little problem with time zones, things like that, but hopefully we can get him on the show next Saturday. So if we can do that, that'll be 2 weeks in a row of some great guests with some great topics to talk about. Very interesting, very informative. And of course, we welcome you in the chat to ask questions from our guests so we can kind of draw some more out of what they're thinking, of what you want to know, what you need to know. We are not just available on youtube.com/Geek Gab. We are available there, but we're not just available there. We're also available on the Google Play Store. Just do a search for Geek Gab. We are also available on the Apple iTunes Store. Just do a search for Geek Gab. And we are also available on SoundCloud.com. Once again, and if you're listening, everybody can say it with me. Just do a search for Geek Gab. We're available on all of those platforms, whether you're on an Android device, whether you're on an iDevice, or whether you just listen on the web because you're fighting the man. We are available. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Do you have any last words before I take us out?
Do it.
This has been Geek Gab. We are leaving you for today, but don't you worry. We will be back.